Me again. Hello. I'll start with this thing, an article, because they didn't allow comments on it, saying Bridget Bardot has not really come in right behind the Me Too campaign. Last two paragraphs. But I'm not sure Bardot's side is one we really need to consider. Okay? She is, by all accounts, reclusive and not particularly engaged with the world. So am I. In 2003, she wrote A Cry in the Silence, a book that railed against gay people, young people, the unemployed, and Islam. She holds opinions so offensive that they are literally illegal. She's been repeatedly fined for inciting racial hatred. The last paragraph really only be understood by UK people of a certain age. It all feels like waking up Bernard Manning from the dead and asking him to chip in with nuanced view on Brexit. And the word nuanced is the one that I'm after from this article, or why I've quoted it. They want nuanced. Nuanced is kind of low-key, but with little subtle, little influential bits in it. It isn't ya but da, shouty, vile, vitriolic, shit skidding, flicking. And I had me a little think that the vitriolic shit skidding is a reaction to what has increasingly been, let's say 20 years, of this liberal, nuanced views on things, which is kind of low-key and kind of, but it's very girly, as in it doesn't just go ba-da and tell you what it's saying. It kind of goes which has moved to being passive-aggressive, but even forget that. But it's the sort of thing that girlies go with, that men can't deal with, and often resort to violence to overwhelm, sometimes even physical violence. So what I think I'm saying is that there's a chance that this vitriolic shit flicking on the interwebs is a bit of a reaction to 20 years of nuance from the liberal people. Right, what did we need here? Okay, I just wanted to quote this because this is not nuanced. That was an article which didn't have comments. This is now in comments. This is what we get from nuanced. Basically, not having people saying, oh, shut the fuck up, you stupid git. What we need are cities redesigned to encourage walking, the use of bicycles and better public transport. Doesn't it? It sounds right. Doesn't it? Sounds right. We do not need energy wasteful cars simply moving to cleaner power source and not addressing the basic problem. This was about hydrogen cars, I think. The article didn't read it. Which is much more energy efficient transportation system. In other words, just public transport, bicycles and walking. While few cars will be needed in rural areas. Oh, a few cars. That means I can still have a car in my rural area. I'd like to see me walk everywhere. In the cities where most of us live, cars should be banned. Right. And lots of people round a dinner table would go, oh yes, darling, yes, Felicity, that's absolute, oh Rodney, yes, that's quite right. Martin Westall comes in and replies and gets twice as many thumbs up with because plumbers, carpenters, bricklayers, care workers, electricians, decorators, delivery drivers, nurses, doctors, HVA engineers can all carry their tools of trade and material on a push bike. It seems perfectly acceptable to just say things that sound nice but just can be blown away with just that much of a practical challenge. But if the practical challenges don't come, then it just is all nuanced. Right, what am I on about here? This is about children and how, I didn't read the article, but it's something about their adolescence now stretching until they're 25. Whatever, eh? A comment goes, when you look back to the days before World War II, children were seen as miniature grown-ups, dressed in the same clothes as their parents and expected to behave as adults in many respects. They were allowed minor misdemeanours in keeping with their age, but they were supposed to model themselves on adults, not their peers. In other words, the idea was you act like us, the parents, not like your friends. Obviously, when you go for a kickabout of footy outside, different. But there are times and places for being adult. Physically, of course, it was the onset of puberty that marked their passage into adulthood, as it still does in many societies. And that meant assuming both adult duties and adult rights. The very idea of teenage years was a creation of the 1950s. Hurrah! When expectations of young adults changed to include the completion of high school education or even college. That meant young people were allowed to live with their parents and avoid responsibilities like finding a job and supporting themselves or making important decisions like getting married. It may be scientifically accurate to suggest that, physically, adolescents last well into their 20s, but until our modern era, young adults prove themselves capable of behaving as if fully developed from puberty on. The idea presented in this article sounds suspiciously like the kind of enabling that allows 40-year-olds to live at home in their parents' basements. Harsh, but surely it's based on some sort of truthy reality sort of thing. Oh yes, I remember why I wanted to finish with this one. Let's finish, then I'll go. I can only speak for myself, but I saw education as a way to escape the poverty and dysfunction in my family. That's why I studied law and then later finance and worked in the city. That's London finance. Not because I found it interesting or gave a damn about the intricacies of the subject matter or because I wanted to make a contribution to our collective knowledge, but because I wanted a job that paid more than what most of my older mates without education were earning. One-upmanship. The jobs, people and hours sucked for almost a decade, but now that I'm 50, I'm glad I did that and continue to reap the rewards of that decision making in my early 20s. I may not be making any contribution to civilization, but I managed to break the cycle of poverty in my family. Now, I wanted to end with this to link to yesterday's video. Yesterday's video was the fat bottom middle class that won't actually pay for the services when push comes to shove. Comment yesterday about inheritance tax. It's the middle fat bottom middle classes that will always block inheritance taxes. Why? Because it's their raison d'être, their meaning of life. They have their job and their family. job, family, job, family. They might have television and football and sport, whatever. But it's job and family, job, family. Then they retire, they have family, grandchildren, whatever it might be. You could even try and pass a law that says only billionaires are subject to some strong inheritance tax laws. They will kick up shit because it's a challenge to the reason that they have done or think they've done everything that they've done in their life. Job, family, job, family. You just can't go touching that sort of stuff because they think that that will be saying that their life has been for nothing if you start taking away what they've earned in their job. And why have they earned it? For their family. It's how people think, especially how the fat bottom middle class think. 11 minutes 32. This fella broken out of his family's poverty by getting high-paying, doing education, getting high-paying jobs. Even if he hasn't got a family, which he probably does have, but even if he hasn't, do you think he'd be on the side of cranking up inheritance taxes? No, he bloody well wouldn't, because if he hasn't got a family, he's had his job as his life. So if you start taxing his life, it starts insulting his life. You can't do it until the fat bottom middle classes realise what existence is all about, that it's more than just work and family. There's no chance of pushing through inheritance taxes because they will see it as a direct insult to what their entire lives have stood for. So you don't get your taxes from your fat bottom middle classes, and you don't get your inheritance taxes from your fat bottom middle classes.